You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. thechrisvossshow.com. Oh, my God. We hired an opera singer to do the bit now. After 15 years, somebody else does it. So, yeah, we went out and hired a opera singer, and she does a pretty good job of it, I think so. Yeah, the main thing is I can't talk over.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, there you go. Isn't it splendid? It's very operatic too, and so it brings a bit of class to the show. Since I lack any of it, thanks for coming on the show, my wonderful friends and audience. We certainly love you. For 15 years, we bring you the most brilliant minds, the smartest people, the billionaires, the CEOs, the authors, the brilliant Pulitzer Prize winners, people who advise presidents, astronauts, you name it. Everybody has been on the show pretty much when it comes down to it. In fact, there's a joke there. I don't know. It's kind of the same people who's dated. I don't know, some of those famous singers. I think I'm thinking of one, but anyway, I've yet to have her write a song about me yet because we haven't dated yet. But I hear I'm in line. Anyway, guys. Taylor Swift. That's who I'm thinking of. You know, she always writes all her songs about her ex-boyfriends. And there you go. But she's busy with an NFL player right now. Good for her. Anyway, guys, welcome to the show. As always, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, and Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok over there. Today we had an amazing, brilliant mind on the show. We've been hashing it out, talking about 80s Wall Street stock markets and all this good stuff on the side. And we're going to be talking about some really cool things here that I think you're going to love and enjoy because that's kind of the central focus of what we'll be discussing today. Today we have Alexandra Renders on the show. She is the founder and CEO of Willow, a certified B Corp and designated WBE, which is a women-based enterprise investment firm. And she comes to us as the founder and CEO of the company for in Willow, which is the investments for Loving Change in Berkshire County, MA. She holds both the rare combination of the WBE and Certified B Corp in the USA. She's known for being keen, intuitive on calls around thematic trends and market cycles. She pioneers caring capitalism with her core values of honesty, love, and caring for all humanity. In addition to finance, Alexandra is an intuitive healer and guides all beings in their inner state of freedom, bringing abundance in all aspects of life. And so that's why we have her on the show. So she can bring abundance to everybody and light and learning. So welcome to the show, Alexandra. How are you?
Thank you, Chris. Wonderful to be here, and I'm doing great. Thanks.
It's wonderful to have you as well. Give us your .coms. Where do you want people to find you on the internet?
Okay, so you want to go to investwithwillow.com and unitedinterstatesoffreedom.com.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview, Alexandra, in your words of what you do and how you do it.
Oh my. Okay, so I've been in the industry for 37 years, and I saw a very flawed industry working on Wall Street and held many various high-level positions in investments throughout the industry. And it was in 2009 where I said there has to be a better way because the way that I was experiencing it just didn't cut it for me. And so I decided to start off on my own. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that this just wasn't going to be about doing investments. It was about me being out and, if you will, front and center about the fact that I am an economic intuitive, and I'm okay with that. Very different. Not a term you often hear in this industry. And I have to say I was skewered for it by a lot of my colleagues. Who were probably pissed because I called a lot of the trends. What can I say? And I wanted to create a company that was just very different than what I experienced. I wanted to create something where people felt safe. And that was like the number one thing I wanted to do in my organization. So I created safety. And through that safety, I created a a culture of like openness and love and deep concern at the same time as we're managing money for people. So they can be married, they can be blended.
There you go. And I've read many perspective over the years. I was trained when I was in my early 20s to be a stockbroker, and I've done day trading, and I followed Wall Street immensely. In fact, I think I remember you can buy Berkshire Hathaway for $800 a share.
I know. Can you believe that?
Yeah, and I thought it was expensive then.
Oh my God.
There you go. Yeah, I followed him for a lot of years. But you're doing something different with wealth management. So your wealth management organization who handles money for people and their investments and what they want to take and do with their goals. But you guys are focused on something done very differently. And tell us a little bit more about it. I see some things on the website that talk about deep knowledge, conscious capitalism, and being heart-centered.
Yep.
What's that about?
Okay, so first of all, like there's no perfect formula, and that's what I learned about the investment industry. And I think you know that because you traded in the 80s, so you get it. For a long time, we were ESG/SRI. So for people who don't know what that is, that's environmental, social governance, and social responsibility. We abandoned that process a few years ago because what we found was the policies that were being created around the world was actually creating a greater group of disenfranchised people. It was actually shoving people deeper into poverty because they were actually putting in policies before we actually had solutions. So yeah, and I can go into a lot of examples of how that is. And I guess I'll call it like just a ton of greenwashing. Like, for example, like everybody thinks the electric car, blah, 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 and they're pushing it. Okay. But let's face a fact. There's a I think it's in Kansas. There's a battery manufacturing facility in Kansas that has to run 100% on coal.
It has its own coal plant. Yeah.
Let's get real, shall we?
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, and what it ultimately is doing is it's pushing up the prices for everyone, and especially, you know, like I said, creating a greater group of disenfranchised people. So we got to a point where we said, okay, we have to do like a deeper dive into these companies and look at. There was two things, like actually the qualitative look at the companies, not quantitative. So we got a little bit more involved. But the other thing is, I knew the only way that change was really going to take place, and this is just a philosophy that I have, is a change within myself. And within myself, then in turn within all of my employees. So what I created, because I was really bummed out that, you know, this wasn't working. Things are getting worse for my human family, not better. So I realized that change has to come here. And so I decided to create a corporate culture of love, because I believe that ultimately is what's going to heal everything. Because if every action I take, I know that my action matters to the whole, then I will always take the proper action, if that makes sense.
That does. You know, we were talking before the show. You and I came into Wall Street about maybe about the same time. And you know, there seemed to be this big transfer. It was the 80s, you know, and you had Reagan saying, trickle down economics, it's going to work. And I've watched that dissolve the middle class and Main Street ever since then. You know, we saw the greed is good era, the Ivy-Bioskis that famously quoted that, and then went to jail for what was it called? It was called what was it called? Where you background trade?
Inside trading. You mean?
Inside trading. There you go. There you go. Yeah. And you know, the Michael Milkins and all that sort of stuff that went down. Gordon Gekko. There you go. And so much of that went on, and it seemed to be, in my mind, because I was very young, I was coming of age, and I was just entering the job market, and I was looking at, you know, my father, who grew up with the IBM sort of era, who was like, you work for a company all your life, you get the gold watch, and you get the retirement, and the 2-picket fence, and the 2-week, you know, and it seemed to be, you know, unions were under attack. The new way to jump your stock price was to lay off people And so people kind of became this laying off people. We kind of came like this thing. It's like, hey, if your company really sucks and you're doing awful, just lay off a bunch of people. And
Wall Street will love it.
Yeah.
Yay.
And I think even, what is it? I want to say Diamond, but the head of
Jamie Dimon.
Jamie Dimon, has even said, hey, we kind of went a little too far on the whole spectrum of focusing too much on investor returns as opposed to just building solid companies. I'm not sure how well he really believes in that or spouses or cares, but it sounded good on paper, I guess, from the PR aspect of it. And so we do kind of live in this environment, but there is a lot of change going on. Like you said, we've had several different professors on the show that have talked about the greenwashing element, about how there's a lot of BS that's out there about green elements. We have people on the show just recently that were talking about how, new employees want to work for companies that seem to be more compassionate, seem to be caring about different things, how people are treated, how the environment's treated and things like that. So it sounds like you're on the cusp of something that, is kind of coming of age.
I so believe in it. And I have to tell you, when I did this, when I decided to kind of just come out of the closet with this, and I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, I remember I said, I want to create a culture of safety, love, self-development, because everybody here is required to actually do their inner work. And of course, the change for the better good. And I remember when I first announced this, people said to me, oh, that's so idealistic. It's impossible, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, I that's all you have to do is give me a challenge and I'm on it. And so we were able, myself and my partner, my executive coach, who's now actually my husband, we actually put together a quantifiable way to actually measure love in an institution. And you cannot, So actually my team gets just like any performance review, do they have competence? Do they have motivation? Those are big. But number 3 is culture. And in that culture piece is, how much are you showing love to your other employees? And it grades it in 4 levels. And it's the same thing with safety. How are you showing safety in the organization? Now, I'm not talking about physical safety. I'm talking about, emotional safety. And that would come up by way of conflict. If any conflict comes up, because conflict is going to happen, right? Yeah, definitely. How are we going to deal with that? I'm telling you, these people here know how they are, how do I say this? Highly competent communicators, especially when it comes to conflict, because we put the money and energy and time into that. Yeah.
So you basically, you would say you're bringing spiritual principles to capitalism?
Absolutely. That's, at the core, I had to sit with it and say, that's what I do. And then, that's the other company I have, Inner States of Freedom, is my husband, my partner, and we work with, and he's a very decorated executive coach from Belgium who's worked with a lot of big organizations. And I have to attribute a lot of my courage to come out with this was through the individual work that I did with him, that I literally had to get over my fear of rejection. Because when you tell people in the Wall Street firm, I want to bring love to business, they're like, this woman is completely baked. But you know what? One thing I'm going to say about me, I'm always ahead of the curve. And if I just get over it and do it, like tiny homes, for example, I knew that was going to be a trend many years ago. The tech bubble, financial crisis, I told you, I called both of them before they happened. I have the ability to see trends. I'm all about pattern recognition. Okay. And everything talks about patterns. And I knew I'm not going to hold back from what I know is the next trend, and something that I believe in wholeheartedly, which is love.
There you go.
So anyway, I digress, but yeah, that's my most important spiritual principle. And I've been around people who have passed away, quite a few, 4 of them recently. That's all they want in the end. So what are we waiting for?
There you go. I mean, the world needs a whole lot more love. I've been an entrepreneur all my life. I'm a capitalist. I enjoy business, but I do recognize that unbridled capitalism has some problems right now, especially when there's a human cost to it, where humans are expendable at every level. I mean, we've talked on the show ad nauseum about how people between insurance companies, between employers, throwing people out. You see all this kumbaya during COVID where everyone's like, we're a family and we're all going to get together, and then somehow you see that joke a lot on LinkedIn. They're like, oh, we're a family. Stop using the family language because you throw us out whenever the boat takes on a little bit of water.
Well, we have a massively dysfunctional family is really what it is.
Probably true. It sounds like my Christmas dinners and Thanksgiving dinners. But it is dysfunctional. It's the issues with wage. We're seeing unions make a comeback. We are kind of in a different place, though, that I don't know if a lot of companies are realizing that now. But a lot of the baby boomers and the late Gen Xers have left the job market, and we actually have a want for employees, and we're going to have a want for employees. It's going to get worse. One of the things I was reading, I think it was in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, a bit ago, was that for every 7 baby boomers that are retiring, that have lifetime of skill work, that you can pay them really good money for, and they're masters of their trades, there's only one person replacing them, and they're a newbie who doesn't have any of the experience. And so in all trades, I mean, between doctors and everything on down, we've got a fight that's going to be coming up over future employees, and somehow we want to have an economy that grows. But you've got to have an employment base that also grows, which is what the baby boomers had, and I think we had. But we've been in a 29% decline of birth rates for several decades now. It's kind of interesting where we're going.
You bring up really valid points. I love that you're bringing all this up because the labor participation rate is definitely coming down. That's definitely a pattern that's taking place. And when you couple that with the demographic change, like the change in thinking, like a lot of this younger generation. So I'm at the very beginning of the X generation. You're probably at the end of the boomer generation, maybe.
I'm not sure where I fall in the thing. I think I'm deep in the middle. I might be at the tail end of X.
Yeah. So
68.
Yeah, I'm 65. So anyway, so essentially what I see happening is the younger generation will not tolerate what we tolerated. They just won't. And they're a little bit more, I want to say, on the ball than I think our generation was. I mean, I came out of college and I'm like, okay, car, house, and I had this focus that was very different than what I see with this other generation. And I think employers, you better get ready. You better get ready for what's coming next, because I think there's going to be a demand. They're going to demand things very different than what we did. We were more slaves to our jobs. They are not.
Yeah, they're not.
They are not. And I mean, I think that's the one thing, like, for example, Pascal and I run these panels, and it's called 5 Stories, 5 Humans, 5 Stories, Infinite Wisdom. And it's literally one person from each generation that we put on for corporations, actually, to actually hear from each generation what's important for them as an employee in the future. So these companies get to listen and ask questions to each one of these generations on how they can keep them employed. So, and what you're hearing is the younger generation just will not tolerate what the older generation has.
Definitely. And they want companies that, like we mentioned earlier, that care more about what's going on in the world and I think value their people more, and they can demand it. We're seeing that extraordinary. We're seeing unions stand up again. Unions seem to be making a comeback and saying, hey, the power has come back to the employee. I remember before COVID, people were talking about, hey, we need to increase the minimum wage to $10 or $15, and like everyone was raising hell, and they're like, no way, this whole economy will collapse. now we're seeing cities that are approving $20 to $25 minimum wage. I think
Mhm.
California did $20 minimum wage for fast food workers.
Mhm.
It's kind of interesting. It's kind
Well,
of
we
flipped.
are in the way, we are like the pendulum is swinging, because I think,
Mhm.
like, again, you and I are right in the same bucket there. And when we came out of school, it was high inflation and it was going down. We actually see that trend. It's reversing now. We're going in the other direction.
Yeah.
So we're going into a super cycle of inflation and a super cycle of like a stagflationary, I call it reverse stagflation, where the cost of necessities are going higher. So when you actually look at the real wages, cost of necessities, I think, are going higher at a time when you're having like a low growth economy. So the cost of necessities are going to go higher. So for these people making 20 an hour, it's really not much, and
No.
especially in California.
It's just catching up to what it should have been for a long time, actually.
I
But,
know, and I argue that they're still behind. I hate to say it, but
yeah.
yeah.
So how does a company take and bring spiritual principles to business, and what's the value of it?
Yeah, so it's primarily internally how we manage our team, how we manage the employees within the organization and what's expected of them, and then how they're to show up for our clients. It's a very different. I know that a lot of people talk about we have the best service and all this kind of stuff. I'm not looking for that. What we do, like with our clients, is we do a pretty significant big give back. We offer to our clients to come in on a monthly basis to do things like called constellations, which helps them with any family dynamics. So we actually focus our energy on anything that we have that's a donation or anything, we put towards raising the consciousness of the individual in our community. That's like a big thing for us. How do we help raise a person's consciousness? And we run programs right here that my company actually sponsors. That's how we give it back. Because the bottom line is, Chris, we're a small investment advisor. Some companies will listen to us that we own, but most of them are like, oh yeah, you're a small investment advisor. We're not a multi-billion-dollar investment advisor. So we said, well, how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do this right here in our grassroots, because that's the best that we can do. And we have clients around the world, but those who want to join in can come in, and we run all kinds of programs for this.
There you go. And how do you put values into action in life, business, and community? It sounds like I think we spoke in the pre-show or during the show about how you kind of help your clients balance work-life living and kind of being in this values importance of life and love.
And all that, like, again, that's part of what we offer here. We have on team a full-time coach who actually has specific processes to actually, like, this is for real. Somebody with PTSD or trauma, he has a process to help them in one session to help them overcome the major part of their PTSD.
Oh, wow.
It can be done. Listen to me, EMDR, I'm an EMDR practitioner. I gave it up for this method that we learned.
Wow.
And these are the kinds of things that we actually do for our clients. And right now, my company is getting ready to sponsor him to go to Maui to work with the people for free there to help them overcome, the visions that they saw, the sights that they saw in that fire, and the trauma that they saw experience. We are sending him there to deal with this, to help these people overcome. And it can be done very quickly. This is what people don't understand. And these are the kinds of things, like, I want to help people know that this is available to them. And if you're part of this company, this is something that we make accessible.
There you go. And in the end, it's not all about money. I mean, we've all made money, and I remember when I first became successful at 30, I kind of reached that "is this all there is" moment, and I was like, everyone hates me, everyone likes me for my money, but my life is a mess. I mean, all it did was amplified what a horrible kind of. I don't want to say I was a horrible human being, but it amplified all my worst aspects that I hadn't fixed in growing up poor and having issues of trauma and stuff from childhood. But it just amplified everything. And if anything, it insulates you and makes you feel justified in some of the bad behaviors you have. And I just wasn't happy. I was just like, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be. In fact, if anything, it's worse. You know, the things. I remember watching Fight Club and having a moment where I was like, Jesus, the things that you own end up owning you. And I'm like, wow, I'm just a prisoner in a gilded cage at this point. I mean, that's really where I'm at. So, you talked about some things in the pre-show about what you do with some of this coaching that you do. Tell us about that and how that works. I forget the term you used.
Okay, I'm a channel, so I know that this is okay. So I mentioned that I'm an intuitive. So one of the things, and I am an economic intuitive, I have been able to see trends. I know what's happening today. I wrote about it in 2012, and it's happening. And, this reverse stagflation, I call it. I am a definite, like pattern recognition is a really big thing for me. So I use my intuitive skills. So I not only use both hemispheres of my brain. So the intuition and the science, and I combine the two in my work here. The other thing that I do is, because I have been a healer for really, I say, all my life. And I sometimes think that that's really what I am as a healer. I just happen to do investments too. And, one of the things that I do is I have sight. I have this ability to see inside a person. It's not always comfortable, to their shadows. So you talk about like the trauma you experienced as a little boy, for example. We all have something, and my sight actually has the ability to link what is going on for someone to a pattern. So I'm going to give an example. A woman who came to one of my channels, so I do it for groups of people, and you can ask any question you want. She said, I'm really bothered by a lot of stuff at work, and I really don't know what's going on, and I'm just feeling all these feelings. I go in, I'm just not feeling good, and la, la, la. And so the channel came through and said, oh, that's because you're picking up on an emotion every time you walk into that building. And do you know what that emotion is? It's either mad, sad, glad, or scared, because those are the 4 emotions. And she said, and I knew which one it was. She's like, oh, anger. And I said, of course, anger. And especially women are not in touch with their anger. And it's really important for women to get in touch with their anger. And it's really important for men to get in touch with their sadness and their fear. Men will not admit they're sad and fear. Women will not admit they're angry. Okay. Yeah. And when women admit they're angry, we will not have war. And when men admit that they're scared and they're sad, they will get the recognition and the support that they need, because there's a lot of burden on men right now. And I think I feel deeply for what the males are going through in our society right now. They do not get the support to be able to have that vulnerability. So anyway, through the channel, it said, this is what you need to do. You need to write on a piece of paper all the reasons why you got ripped off in your life. I could see clearly it had something to do with her as a little girl. I could see she grew up in an alcoholic family. It was very clear through my sight. Yeah. So I said to her, because I was helping coaching with this company, and this is a woman who worked there. I said, please get on a piece of paper and write out all things. She contacted me. She couldn't sleep that night after the channel. She said she wrote 5 pages of, now she's in her 40s, okay? So she's been holding this in for a long time. She wrote 5 pages of all the things that happened to her as a little girl that she got ripped off with that made her pissed. That is this is why this work of helping people awaken and come to their awareness is very important to me. Yeah. Because if you can do that, you're going to overcome your fear, and you're going to manage your company at a very high integrity, because you're no longer afraid.
There you go.
That's why there's so much greed. There's fear. That's it.
And it's interesting how much of that is on there. In fact, we just had a young lady on a couple days ago, Kat Cannon. She wrote a book called Behind the Mask, and she talked about trauma-based. And she's talking about the same sort of thing you're talking about, where people's traumas are haunting them into the workplace. And we need to recognize and help people with that. If you're building teams, or if you're a leader, this more heart-centered thing. And this seems to be becoming more popular as we go through it, and people are starting to realize that, hey, it's not all about doing the work and going through the motions of work and maybe doing something you're just passionate about, finding stuff that you love, but also, healing the wounds from your childhood so you can overcome them and not be suffering from trauma.
And the beauty. Yeah. And you have to understand, think about this. It's us wounded children. It's us injured. We are injured and leading our company. These injuries. Oops.
I can hear you. You're coming through. I think there's a little bit of blips on the internet there. I can hear you if you can hear me.
I think so. I'm hardwired too. It's me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. I think it's breaking up on your computer.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. It's breaking up. I can't hear you right now.
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
That's
I think it's stabilized.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
There we go.
I can. Yes.
All right.
Okay. Let's hope this stays. Yeah. So anyway, I think that we have a bunch of injured children running our companies. And so how can you heal capitalism if you aren't healing the person?
Mm-hmm. That's very true.
There's all this talk. There's all this talk about some of the stuff that's going on in industry right now. All these lawsuits that are taking place. And you have to understand, Chris, I have been in a lot of boardrooms. I held senior management positions. I held executive positions at larger companies. I sat in those rooms with those injured people, and I saw how they behaved. It wasn't okay.
And that's probably why we need more heart-centered stuff in there, because we're trauma-based leaders, essentially.
Exactly.
There you go.
And yeah, and love, it isn't easy to sit here and say, I'm creating corporate culture of love. It was vulnerable at first, but now I'm like, it's who I am. Yeah. I don't care anymore. So, yeah.
There's a lot of people that have traumas. There was a lot of loss during COVID. There's all sorts of things that people grow up with. It's a very tough world right now, and a lot of the millennials grew up with the craziness of the 2008 crash, people take their traumas and drag them through their whole life if they don't resolve them. I tell people, if you got traumas, go see a psychiatrist, get professional help now. Don't wait. It affects everything you do. It's an impact. You can see how it impacts your whole life. And sadly, by the time you recognize it, you've drug it through your whole life. And so it's really important people deal with this. So the channeling thing, do you offer that as a separate coaching offer, or is that just only for your clients?
Well, I always do it for my client. Whenever they need me, I'm there. Mm-hmm. But I do offer it separately through the Interstates of Freedom, through our other company. I offer free channels every week. I do them for free to groups of people. And all they have to do is just, email Alexandra at interstatesoffreedom.com, and they can get on the mailing list. And like I said, it's literally free. That's my give back to the world. It's a gift that I have. When I work one-on-one with people, that's when we'll charge. But otherwise, look at this as part of the gift that I've been given, and I want to share it.
There you go. And so that we get your services in here for investments in here, there's also people out there listening that can get involved with you guys for investing. Yes. Is there a minimum client that you take on? What sort of client looks good for you?
Well, I'll tell you what looks good for me is somebody who's aligned with who we are. Okay. Mm-hmm. More than even what they have. So just so you know, I used to be an institutional portfolio manager. So I manage big funds. Mm-hmm. And then over time, when the last employer I was with was a bank, and it started dropping down in size. I moved out of New York City and I moved up to the Berkshires. And so, there were smaller accounts like $1 million. And so not these large institutions. And when I started my own company, I said, this is about people being aligned with who we are. So if they have 250,000, we'll manage them. And even if they were smaller and if they are aligned, we would take them on. Our average account size is somewhere around 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, it's about who they are and what they need.
There you go.
And
there you go.
And,
I think it's breaking up again on us.
It's not a when they call it. And
so you guys handle investment management, coaching for empowered living for individuals, comprehensive IRAs, taxable accounts, trusts, and more, full picture financial planning, using your money through proactive proxy voting. You also do for companies and nonprofits retirement plans, and learning to lead with heart and Excel. So really cool stuff, and something where you feel like you can change the world and improve the quality of the world, as opposed to just trying to get rich and scrape the world for everything it possibly can. It sounds like.
That's my motto. That's where I am in my life. Yeah.
There you go.
It's a good life.
And so when people want to reach out to you and see if you guys are a fit, how can they do that? Okay,
Alexandra at Invest with Willow. You can also go to www.investwithwillow.com. And then also Alexandra at interstatesofreedom.com. And that's for the channel work. And to get on our list for free channel, they can come there.
There you go. Well, Alexandra, it's been wonderful to have you on. Thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Chris, thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm hardwired. I'm not sure what's going on here, but sorry for the interference. Thank you so much.
We'll edit it out in the end. That'll fix it. So these things happen with computers. But it's wonderful to have you on. I'm glad companies like yours are out there trying to change the world and improve the world. And thank you very much for that. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss, and all those crazy places on the internet. See you next time, and take care. And that should have us out. There you go.